this video where we are learning to code with Scratch. I am your teacher, Mr. Sikwebu. So on our last video, we learned, or rather we looked at the interface for Scratch, and we said that Scratch is a tool that we learn to code, and it's useful for children from grade R all the way to grade 9. So in this video, we are going to have a deeper look, not just at the interface of Scratch, but we are going to look at how to use some of the code that we find in Scratch. And so what we'll do simply today is we'll have a sprite, we'll have a backdrop, and then we will have our sprite moving on our screen, doing some random stuff. All right, so we are going to start by removing this sprite that we see on our screen. And I will want then to select a new sprite, and I will go to the bottom left corner of my screen, and I will select the icon that says choose a sprite. Then you will see that it will bring me to this sprite category page, and I can choose by category, or I can just look for a sprite that I want to use, or I can search for a sprite. So I want the sprite called bear walking. Okay, so I will just have a bear, and you can see that as you select a sprite, it is then shown to you the actions that it's going to do. So for instance, if I select this one, let's say Amon, you see Amon only has one sprite, or only has one movement, and Andy has multiple movements, Anina has multiple movements. So depending on which sprite you select, it may have one or many costumes that will give you the impression that it's actually moving. So I want to select bear walking, and the bear will be brought to my screen, and I'm going to change its size by coming to the size and making it a bit smaller. I will then make it 50, and I will press enter, and then it will change and it will become smaller. Now I can change the name of my sprite, and I will call it Mr. Sikwebu. I can do that if I want to, but this name, when you exit this program, when you save and exit this program, when you start a new one, it will be called bear walking. It will only be Mr. Sikwebu when I open this program again. All right, so we have a sprite, and we want to also add a background to our project. So I'm going to look for a project that looks like a bear could be happy, and let's see, I'm going to select the boardwalk. Okay, let me take the boardwalk, and I'll drag my bear, and it's going to just walk across the screen. All right, now if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to add another bear, and these bears are going to meet halfway. So let's say bear. Okay, now you will see that this one, let's make it 50 also. Okay, no, it's too small. Let's say 60, and let's say 65. Okay, all right, now if we make it 65, it more or less becomes this. They're more or less the same size. Okay, now what we need to do, I want them to, they're not going to be walking the same direction. This one must be going this way, that one must be going that way, and just in order for you to do that, you can change its direction if you wanted to, but you are going to see something very, very funny right now. If you change this direction and do it that way, it was going to make it upside down. And so what then we can do is that we can change its orientation, or rather, how do I put it? We can change how it is. We can flip it we can flip it around. Sorry, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So you come to costumes and you will flip horizontally, all right? And then you will also have to flip all the other bears, all the other costumes also horizontally, because if you don't, and when it starts moving, it's going to start moving this way, and then for the third one, it's going to face the other way. So we want to flip all of them horizontally. All right, so now we have two sprites, we have a background, and so let's begin to code our one bear and make it to start to walk. So in order to do that, we will look at our code, and we first want to have a look at the categories that we have. We have motion, we have looks, we have sound, we have events, and I think let's look at only those ones today because it's what we are going to use. So if you look at motion, the word motion has to do with movement. And so whenever we want code that is going to help us to do any form of movement, we are going to find it in motion. Whenever we want a code that is going to have to change, that is going to change how our sprite looks, we are going to find it in looks. And whenever we want to have code that is going to trigger an event or tell our sprite to start doing something, the best way that I can say is to trigger an event. Let's say you had a game. Think of the events as the start button when you have a game, that when I press the start button, my game must start to work. Or think of when you are driving a car, think of the start button. When you're starting your car's engine, you start the car and then it comes to life. So think of the events as that, as a way to trigger our code to do something, to start working. And then we have control, and okay, no, we're not going to use control or sound. Whenever we want to make any form of sound, we are going to use the sound category. Okay, so that is what we are going to look at. So now to begin with, we will go to our move 10 steps. So if we select move 10 steps and we drag it into our coding area right here, we are going to see what it does. Okay, sorry, wrong sprite. I will select this one, Mr. Sequebo sprite. Okay, I will say move 10 steps. Okay, you can zoom it in. So you can zoom it in by clicking on this plus or minus zoom out, zoom in. Okay, so if I click on it, now if I double click, it's going to move my bear across the screen. And you will see that as I press my bear, it is dragging on the screen. And the other thing that you will notice that when I press on enter, when I double click, it changes the position of my bear. For instance, or this on the X, which is the horizontal, it's going to add 10 to this number. All right, so it's minus 20, it's minus, now its position is at minus 129, and as I press, it's minus 119. As I press, minus 109, and then 99, minus 99, and then it's going to keep going up until it gets to a positive number. And you will see that it will start increasing, because what it does is that it adds 10 to our X position. All right, so I'll bring it back to, oh yeah. And also, if I wanted it to go backwards, all I have to do is to, what do you think? If I wanted to take it backwards, what do you think I would have to do? Well, I will then say it must move by minus 10 steps. So if I do this, now it goes backwards by minus 10 steps. All right, then what do you think I must do if I wanted to go forward? I just make it move 10 steps. All right, so that's how we move it. And as you now can see, it's a bear that is actually just gliding on the screen. It's not actually having any natural form of movement. It looks like it's just gliding on the screen. And so to fix that, we are going to add another code. And this code is going to be under the looks category. And when we go there, we will select next costume. Now, if you see on the costumes, what that code does is that it says move 10 steps, and it moves our bear by 10 steps, and then it goes and says next costume. So the next costume is this one. All right, when I press again, it says move 10 steps, next costume, move 10 steps, next costume, move 10 steps, next costume. So that's what happens. That's what keeps happening here. So if I look, for instance, I hope now you can see it's on this costume right now. So if I press it twice, it should be on the third one, and I hope it is on the third one. You will see that it's on the third one, because every time we click on the move 10 steps, you see it changes the costume. All right, hence we say here next costume. Okay, so that is how we can give it some natural movement. Then what will happen is that we also want it to I don't want to keep pressing on these buttons for it to work. So I'm going to have what we call a head block. All right, a head block is under events, and it's called a head block because it looks like a hat. So you can see it looks like a hat, so we call it a head block, and it's under events. It triggers our code to do something. And for today, we are only going to focus on when flag is clicked. So we'll say that when the flag is clicked, when this flag is clicked, it must move 10 steps, which it does, and then it must change the costume. So if I press the flag, it moves 10 steps and it changes the costume. But once again, I see another big problem here, in that I have to keep pressing the flag for my bear to do anything. I have to keep pressing the flag. And so we will go to our last category today, which is control, which I thought I would not get to. I thought these controls were under here. My bad, sorry. So we go to control, and we are going to look for a code block that looks like it could help us. All right, and this code block, we call it a loop. Okay, now a loop is a way or a code that we use in order to repeat our code. So we are going to look for a loop, and in our case we have two loops. We have this repeat loop, and you will have the number of times that you want your code to be repeated, and then we have this forever loop, and then we also have a repeat until. So we have a repeat, a forever, and a repeat until. But today we are just going to use a forever loop. You will also see, as you look at the forever loop, it looks quite different to the other code. You will see that repeat and forever and the repeat until have an arrow that is pointed backwards, which tells you that it is going to, when the code finishes executing, it's going to go back to the top. But you will see that the forever loop has a flat line, which means that when you use the forever loop, nothing can be outside of that loop. Everything must be inside that loop, otherwise it will not be executed by your code. So in order to join our forever loop into our code, we can do one of two things, or one of these things. We will drag this code out, and please take note that if you want both of these blocks to come out or come off, to detach from this one, you are going to select or drag the one from where you want to start. So we want both of these, and so we are going to drag here. If I drag here, it's only going to remove this one. So I will drag and I will place it inside the forever block. Okay, that is one thing. Otherwise, we can just take this forever block and bring it to our code. You will see that as you bring it to your code, it will turn gray to tell you where it's going to end up. Or we can move it forward, some more upwards, and we add everything inside that forever block. And so now we'll see that all our code is inside the forever block. This one will be executed only once, and these ones will be executed always. All right, it will go move 10 steps, next costume, move 10 steps, next costume, move over and over and over again. So if we are to test it, there it is going to move like that. There it's moving. It's just going to constantly it will just keep moving. Nothing is going to stop it, because we have done that. We have said that it must do this code forever. Now, to stop it, we can press the stop button. By stop button, and let's say we wanted it, when it gets to the end, it must turn around and go the opposite direction. And so we need to find a code that is going to help us do that. And we said that anything that has to do with movement on Scratch, we will find in motion. So we look at motion, and we look turn around. We don't want to, yes, we want to turn. So if we take this one and say turn, oh, okay, it just goes upside down. But we want it to turn, and the head must face that way, and the head must face that way, not upside down, but the right side up. Okay, so okay, let me just take it back. Okay, so we see that 15 degrees is not going to work, and we drag 15 degrees and we place it where we found it to delete it. Some other thing, just as in passing, if I have a blue code block here and I want to delete it, and the code that is showing is sensing, let's say, you don't have to first go to motion in order for you to delete it. You can just take it and drag it. It will be deleted. What we want to do, let's keep looking. So we know that turn is not going to work. Go to random position, it's going to work. All right, now what we want is to say, if on edge, bounce. So when it gets to the edge, we want it to bounce and turn around. So let's go ahead and let's see what it's going to do. So, and then I press the green button. Oh, well, there it bounces, and it bounces, and it bounces some more, but it bounces upside down. And so to solve that problem, we are going to continue looking under motion and see what we can find. And what we do find is that it says set rotation style from left to right. We add it to our algorithm, and that stops our bear from walking upside down. All right, so we have a bear now that's moving, and it's moving quite fast. So I want to make it slower just a bit. So I'm going to make, you can say move 5 steps and it's going to be slower, or move, let's say 2 steps, it's going to be slower. But you can see that it's I nearly said its wheels. You can see that its paws are still moving unnaturally. It wants to move fast, but it's moving fast, but it's actually slow. So we will leave it at move 10 steps, but we are going to add a time. So to say to it, okay, listen, as you are walking, as you are moving these 10 steps, wait for a bit. So I'm going to make it 0.3 seconds. Now you can see that it's moving a bit slower. And if you wanted the legs to move slower a bit, or also, you could make it move 5 steps. Then it moves much more slower. All right. So all we did was that we took a code that says wait 0.3 seconds, and then it must move to the next costume. So in our basic algorithm here, what we have is that we have a head block that executes our code. When we click the flag, it does the code forever, and we have put it in this loop, and so it will move 5 steps, it will wait for 0.3 seconds, it will change to the next costume after waiting for 3.5 seconds, and we see how the costume changes. Okay, it's not showing it, but it will change the next costume. If it will ask, has it reached the edge? If the answer is no, it will go out, it will go move 5 steps, wait 0.3 seconds, next costume. It's going to ask itself, am I on edge? If the answer is no, it goes out. All the time, it just keeps doing the same thing. All right, so I do hope that this example was clear, and we saw in this video how to use a head block, how to use a loop, and how to change the costume of our sprite. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments section below, and I will surely, as I receive your comments or as I receive your questions, I will answer them. So until the next video, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.